First hearing of the year. We need to flip the switch on the...
Oh, you move it to that side.
It was on that side. Testing. There we go, testing. All right. Convening the Committee on Water Land, where today is Friday, January 17th. It's 9 a.m. at this. It's about 9:05 a.m. at the state capitol, and this is our first hearing for this committee for 2014, and we want to welcome the audience that is viewing today. We want to welcome all the people that have come here to participate in this hearing, and welcome also our committee members. And before we start, I'd like our committee members to introduce themselves. To my left.
Well, Calvin say it's great to be back as a committee member after 37 years being in South
Nicki, and thanks all for being here.
And Cindy Evans, I'm from William Aila. Thank you.
Oh, February hano ko ino awak luna makainan na. Mai ka apana eha, mai ka mokupuni o Hawaii. I'm Representative Hano from District 4, Island of Hawaii. Mahalo.
Okay. Thank you very much. The purpose of this meeting today is an informational briefing. This committee will be looking at a lot of bills that will impact the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So we thought it was very imperative before we get into all the bills and the details of the bills to listen to the Department of Land and Natural Resources and hear what they see their priorities are for this legislative session. And also, we know that there's been a couple initiatives that have been passed that I think have an impact on the department. And of course, one is the Ocean Recreation Management Plan. The finally came out, and I believe it does impact the department. The other is the State Historic Preservation. There was some corrective action plan that is underway, and we want to get an update on that. And of course, we invite everyone in the department to please highlight what your initiatives are and what you've accomplished. I think this is a day to celebrate your accomplishments as well as talk about where we're going in the future and how can the legislature really help the department in terms of achieving their mission. I believe it's our committee's mission to support what is in this department's responsibilities. So having said that, I would like to invite the chair to come up and...
Chair. Aloha, members of the committee. Aloha, Calvin. Aloha. Welcome back. I'm going to give a brief overview, and then we have an order of presentation to follow. If there was a theme that we would like to share with you, I kind of categorize it in the Finance Committee as sort of the 3 R's. So the department is in the process of course, rebuilding after the, I'll say it, devastating cuts with the last economic downturn. We're also rebuilding confidence with the help of the legislature in terms of funding and in terms of listening to the proposed amendments to some of the statutes and allowing us to go forward with some rules that will make sense. The second R is sort of restoration, and it's restoring not only the physical resources of the state, but also restoring the confidence again. Repeat the word confidence, because I know that you as legislators oftentimes hear from your constituents about their suggestions on ways to improve what the department does. In many of those cases, those are good suggestions, and we can take them in and we can work with them. In other times, it takes statutory changes or rule changes. So restoring the confidence. And the last one is really regaining the respect of the legislature. I think we've done a good job of regaining the respect of the administration and of the general public. I will start off with the employees that you see behind me are probably the most dedicated employees in the state of Hawaii, because many of them, although they're salaried, spend many sleepless nights thinking about how to do more with less, how to be creative, how to how to change the way that words are interpreted so that we can get the work done that needs to be done. How do we deal with federal and county rules and regulations that interact with what we do and have control over what we do, and how do we do that efficiently and quickly? And so I first want to thank them for all of their hard work on behalf of the resources of the state of Hawaii. It's hard to share our accomplishments, which we do not do a good job of, but we have many, when there are so many challenges that continue to be met. So everybody behind me normally goes, okay, that's great, we tick that off, what's next? And so we need to do a better job of informing everyone of the things that we've ticked off. Unfortunately, we get new things added to the list every day. I can tell you about an email that I received 2 days ago about a guy at Makaha Surfing Beach who wants to complain about surfing canoes. He feels that it's a safety hazard. Well, I had to respond to him tongue-in-cheek saying, if you think it's a dangerous situation, move out of the way. But there's this demand for us to be the referee in the surf spots, and that's clearly not our role. I mean, there's a personal responsibility that the public has to take on and not expect that we are going to be the traffic cop for all surfing styles and methods. So these are the challenges that we face, and I need to bring that up so that the presentations that you get sort of come within that context. The other one, Representative Fale, is we have some houses that are in danger, but it is not the responsibility of the state to approve fixes that could impact other landowners as well as other public property. We have a much bigger task in terms of how we're going to deal with our own public infrastructures on the beach in dealing with climate change, in dealing with rising sea levels. So these, in addition to the normal challenges that we face, because climate is changing, we're going to have additional challenges to work with. Add to that our conflicting missions: preserve, promote. And you can see how difficult it is for a department that gets less than 1% of the state budget to protect all of the state's forests, lands, submerged lands, unencumbered state lands, and the list goes on and on. So let me begin with the legislative package. We have a relatively modest legislative package this year. The first two really deal with having the appropriate representation on some of the boards, the very important boards that make decisions regarding permits, regarding EISs, regarding EAs. And that is, the first two are to have a person on the land board that has a background in Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices. The second one is to have a person with that same background on the Endangered Species Recovery Committee. Because oftentimes we have to make choices. And in today's time, sometimes, unfortunately, we have to make choices between two competing threatened and endangered species that also have impacts on traditional and customary practices. We do know that from case law, many times on procedure, the state has lost because it hasn't done an accurate or a very good review of the kapakai analysis. Yeah? Land Use Commission clearly understands that now. It has to be part of the process. That's true for the rest of all of the departments in the state of Hawaii. We have to understand what our decision-making, what our decisions in our decision-making responsibilities impact traditional and customary practices and therefore Native Hawaiians. So those are two bills that will come before you. They don't have bill numbers as of yet. There will be a bill that will come before you. You heard it 2 years ago. You passed it. It is to authorize the state to issue special purpose revenue bonds for dam owners and reservoir owners. You passed it last year. It got to the vote on the ballot. Unfortunately, I think we got less than 50% of the the approvals. The blank votes had a very important consequence in that election. So we endeavor, you help us pass this again this year, we endeavor to do a better job of educating the people as to how important dams and reservoirs are. Dams and reservoirs are very important because what they do is they fit into our rain follows the forest strategy for making sure that we have adequate groundwater supplies as well as managing surface water coming off the mountain. We know how important water is to agriculture. We know how important water is to recreation. We know how important water is to the very fabric of life here in Hawaii. So if we can rebuild our forests, both for watershed purposes as well as for ecosystem purposes, because we have threatened and endangered species that need to be taken care of also. Then if we can capture that water, that surface water, in dams and reservoirs safely and deliver them safely and inexpensively to farmers, we can have food security. So there is a general plan in place. What that will do is it will protect our nearshore waters, the coral reefs, and the estuaries. So this is all interrelated, the things that we do. The next one is a boating bill, and it clarifies that no use permit for state small boat harbors may be transferred unless specifically provided by law. And this cleans up a gray area, which allows us to take care of our fiduciary duty to people that are on the wait list. Yeah? In many of our harbors, because it's so popular and it's so limited, there's a very long wait list for people to come in and get slips. This allows us to be clear and transparent. Relating to the Hawaiian Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, this is the first time that we're asking the legislature to officially recognize the state's role in coal management. And I'll be very honest with you, part of this is because of sequestration. So the monies that were normally associated with NOAA because of sequestration have been reduced. And as a result, it provides us a great opportunity to fund our responsibilities, and it'll allow us to take a larger, more assertive role in the Hawaiian Humpback Whale Sanctuary, as well as the Papahana Moku Akea National Marine Monument. The remaining parts of the package are generally asking the state legislature to exercise its power in terms of approving submerged land leases. And these are fairly innocuous leases that have to do with either seawalls or piers in Kaneohe Bay as we catch up through this process and really codify or make proper some of the things that have been going on in the past that need to be resolved and need to be made proper. Regarding the budget, I'll quickly go to the budget. And at the same time, we have, of course, Rain Follows the Forest is a continuing initiative. We believe that we've been able to demonstrate to the legislature our ability to quickly put that money on the ground and impact what's actually growing in the forest. It's not merely fencing. We have restoration projects going on. We're restoring native Hawaiian forests, restoring partially native Hawaiian forests, but also helping to solidify this idea that we have to protect the watersheds.
Excuse me, 1 second. We have two other representatives that came in. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Richard Fale, North Shore, Oahu.
Derek Kawakami, Kauai, 14th District, East and North.
Thank you. When you go through the budget and explain some of your key initiatives, can you tie it to a program code? Because I have handed out to our members.
Well, as we, if you don't mind, Madam
Okay.
Chair, as we go down the individual divisions, I will let them do it. So I just want to
okay.
give a brief overview.
Excellent, thank you.
The Turtle Bay acquisition is something that's very important to the people on Oahu, not just the people on the North Shore. There's a $40 million request in there. There's the request for the startup money for the IUCN, World Conservation Congress, which we will have a site visit next month. We are very competitive and are in the running we are very strong in the running for the World Conservation Congress, which has never been held in the United States. So it would allow us to showcase what Hawaii has done and at the same time learn from other countries what we can do. We want to build on the Community Fisheries Enforcement Unit pilot project in Maui. It's not only about catching people, it's about being seen and about talking to fishermen and to other ocean users and being available for that dialogue. So to have people out on the water, to have the ability to see someone out there in real time doing real things is exactly what we should be doing. So there's a request to establish pilot projects throughout the other counties in the state. We have heard very loud and clear from hunters that our Rainfall is a Forest program, in their opinion, is a cause for concern. So in that, we have a request in for $750,000 to hire some hunting access coordinators, and these folks will actually take a look at the existing programs in the department to see where we can improve access for hunters. With the approval of the Hawaii Ocean Resource Management Program plan, the department is the lead on 5 out of the state's 11 top management goals, and the operational lead agency on 10 of the 11 goals. So in order to properly implement the recommendations, we feel it's necessary for some additional positions. And if you just tie my discussion of the surfer who's concerned about surfing canoes, you can see the increasing ocean user conflicts that are occurring out there, and thus the need for additional specialized positions to deal with these future challenges. The Commission on Water Resources is in a very, I'll say historical time frame, in that the Supreme Court has sent back to the Water Commission several contested cases for us to resolve some unresolved issues. They're very, very important, and they will be historical decisions that are sure to receive scrutiny. We are also, because water is so important and water on some islands are so limited, we have a greater number of complex contested cases coming forward, and so we need some additional personnel to help us deal with these contested cases, the additional contested cases. There is an opportunity to purchase some conservation lands, with Castle and Cook announcing that they want to diverse their land holdings in Hawaii. Excuse me. So we think that's a good idea, and we certainly should contemplate being part of the purchase of these lands. We will keep you informed as the process moves forward. We certainly would love to have some of that land to expand hunting on Oahu, as well as taking a look at those parcels for their potential for T&E and watershed projects. So with that, I would ask maybe if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them right now. If not, we can go through the list of divisions and they can get into a little bit more specifics, and we'd be happy to answer any
I think the question is your time. Are you going to be leaving us shortly? Because I'm sure there is some question.
I'll be here for the presentation.
You'll be here for the whole time? Well, good. If members don't mind, if we can wait to the end for questions, because I think they may get answered as each one of your managers talks. Okay?
So our first up,
okay,
the Division of Forestry. Are you going to change it up? Okay. So DOCARE will be the first. Oh,
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Randy Owo speaking on behalf of DOCARE, DLNR. To my right is Kirk Smythe, and to my left is Jason Radula, both of whom are assigned to administrative responsibilities with DOCARE.
Thank you. And because we do have this televised live, can you explain what DOCARE means, the acronym? Because there'll be several people that don't know what that means. Thank you.
DOCARE means Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement. We are the enforcement entity for the entire department. The department is divided up into 13 divisions, and our kuleana is to enforce all laws that have been established to manage each one of the division's responsibilities. Our mission statement is to enforce all laws that have been established to protect Hawaii's unique cultural, natural, and historic resources. As we've said before, what that means is we are responsible for enforcing laws that cover several million acres of land, as well as several million acres of marine waters that are part of the state. I'd like to start with our two top priorities for this legislative session. One is to seek restoration to our operations budget. The other is to make permanent a community fisheries enforcement unit program that's been established on Maui in the form of a pilot. And then also to seek additional funding to stand up a community fisheries enforcement unit on Kauai, Hawaii, and Oahu as a result of the success that we are experiencing on Maui. I would like to start with the accomplishments for DOCARE. We start by saying to all of you that at the top of our priorities is this continuing desire to create models that afford us greater opportunities to work closer with our communities, to help them understand what our role is, and then to encourage and inspire them to help us in achieving that mandate. A little bit about the Community Fisheries Enforcement Unit. That was established in response to communities across the state wanting us to respond in different ways to some of the challenges that they see occurring in their fisheries. And so recognizing that, we established a limited geographical area on Maui, on the north shore of Maui, which is a 13-mile stretch of fishery. We have dedicated 3 officers full-time to administer to that effort. It's the first of its kind ever in DOCARE. And why is it different? It's because normally our officers are responding to cases, enforcement of laws that start Mauka, go down to the shoreline, and go 3 miles out to sea. That's a very inefficient and ineffective way to administer to resources. So what we have created here is a paradigm shift where we are now focusing our efforts on this one limited geographical area of fisheries. What it also does for us in focusing on the fishery, we also have an opportunity to focus on the communities that use this area. We are more available, we're more visible, and we're more present in their lives. We also have attached to that model is a Makai Watch specialist, which is the equivalent of a community/educational specialist. Why was that important? Because our officers, in spite of their efforts to educate, their primary job is to enforce laws. And so we recognize that in order to educate our communities and bring them up to a level that we think is effective, that's a full-time job. So the community specialist, that is that person's full-time job, working with communities, bringing them to the table, bringing them under one tent so that we can all move forward together. Now, the pilot program on Maui has been extremely successful. In the short time that it's been stood up, which has been several months, we've seen a dramatic decline in violations that occur in this area. We have received increasing, growing community support for more models such as this. We have greater capacity now to look at other things that are connected to that fishery that allows us to not just enforce laws, but to participate in community initiatives where we are working with them to look at new ways of developing laws, new ways of overcoming certain challenges that go well beyond the existing laws. So we are working in partnership with Castle Foundation, Conservation International, the Governor's Office to support this pilot program. We are hoping that we can expand it this legislative session. We do believe very strongly that this is the way for DOCARE to become better at what we do and to meet the growing challenges that continue to confront us moving forward. On the budget restoration, we'd like to talk about why that's so important to us. And I need to start with the recession. In 2008, we had slightly more than $2 million to run the entire state of Hawaii. As a result of the economic decline, in 2009, that budget was reduced by 2/3. It went from roughly $2 million to roughly $500,000. Now, if that was a personal household account, that would be the equivalent of a foreclosure. Now for DOCARE, because we cannot foreclose on our public mandate, we continue to struggle through that, recognizing that as we move forward, the impacts to us continue to be very dramatic. That said, we continue to do our best to work with what we have to serve the public. However, if we don't correct the operational budget that we continue to struggle with, this is an unsustainable practice. We cannot continue to do what we're required to do with the budget that we currently have. Now, when we talk about our kuleana, I think sometimes it's hard to visualize what that really means. And so we brought some laws and books to try to illustrate what it looks like for our guys on the ground. So we start with this. This is the criminal code. Contained in this criminal code is pretty much everything that our police departments have to enforce from a statutory point of view. We recognize that our police departments are very challenged. They have a very difficult mandate. They too struggle with budgets and staff shortfalls. Likewise, DOCARE enforces all the laws contained in here as well, as long as it's occurring on lands that fall under the Department of Land and Natural Resources. In addition to that, all statutory violations that occur on our ocean waters 3 miles out to sea kick in with this book as well. Contained in this book is our primary mandate, Title 12, Conservation and Resources Enforcement. As a result of that statutory mandate, what you see in front of you, in addition to this is all the other rules and laws that we are responsible for enforcing. Promulgated under the statutory requirements is Title 13. These rules cover things such as our historic sites, rules that have been established to protect our heiau, our sacred sites, the iwi of our kupuna, Iolani Palace. All of that comes into play for us on a daily basis. Contained in this book are all the hunting laws, all the rules that manage our forest reserves. Contained in these books, coral protection, fishery protection. There's many, many things contained in these books. What's becoming increasingly challenging for DOCARE, surrounding our primary mandate, are continuing added layers that cover our primary mandate that has begun to encircle it. And it's becoming more and more difficult to get to it because we have additional federal responsibilities. We have Marine Protection Mammal Act that's in play. We have NOAA agreements that are in play. We have DEA, marijuana eradication efforts that are in play. Since the advent of the Asia Pacific Economic Conference, because we are the only maritime law enforcement entity within the state of Hawaii, we were called to provide waterborne protection for international delegates that were arriving to participate in that, including the President of the United States. As a result of that, we are now called upon on a regular basis to provide maritime security for President Obama every time he lands in Hawaii. That call comes directly to us from the Secret Service on a regular basis. So I'm trying to, in this very short period of time we have, to let you know these are the challenges that we are faced with. Now, to put it into a manpower and a budgetary context, police departments. Here in the state of Hawaii, we are currently up to roughly 1.4 million resident population. We receive roughly 6 million visitors a year. The same population that the police department is required to service holds true for us as well. But let me just break down what the budget looks like. Again, we have a $543,000 operations budget. Here in Honolulu, where the bulk of the population resides, they have an operations budget of $232 million. They have a staff of roughly 2,000 officers. We have 39 officers. Maui, $47 million for their budget. They have 465 officers. We have 22. Hawaii County, $47 million plus. 591 officers. We have 29. Kauai PD, $11 million. They have 113 officers. We have 13. Total operations budget for the police department, $340 million to $543,000. This is unsustainable. Now, we work very closely with the police departments. We view them as a critical and important partner in the work that we do. But we also work closely with the U.S. Coast Guard. We work closely with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We work closely with NOAA. We are confronted with these very daunting challenges, and DOCARE must be given the tools and the budget to do our job. And I now need to wrap it up. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Sold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, good question. And I do want everyone to know the committee, we really appreciate the work that is done by the department. Everybody, we do realize that when the recession came, that everybody had to do a lot of heavy lifting. When positions were frozen or weren't backfilled, you still had responsibilities, so everybody went the extra mile, and we do appreciate it very much. Yes. Morning.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. I'm Lisa Hadway, the brand new administrator for the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. I actually start next Tuesday. The Division of Forestry and Wildlife is tasked with and responsible for managing and protecting the watersheds, native ecosystems, cultural resources, and provide for outdoor recreation and sustainable forest products opportunities. And we facilitate a lot of partnerships with our watershed partnerships and other community members and provide for educational opportunities. We manage nearly 1 million acres, which makes up over 70% of the ceded lands in the state. We are also the primary firefighters on state lands. Several of the priorities of the department fall under our division, Forestry and Wildlife. As mentioned by Chair Aila, the Rain Follows the Forest initiative is implemented by DOFAW. Our priority request is $3.5 million in general funds, along with $5 million additional funds in CIP, and the continuation of 11 temporary positions. Currently, we've protected over 38,000 acres for high-level management, and we're working with partners to manage over 487,000 acres under this initiative. We're in our third year on this initiative, and it's been highly successful, and we greatly appreciate the continued support. You'll hear a bit more about the invasive species funding restoration, but in the budget, we're also looking for $1 million. And Josh Atwood from the division will also be discussing that more. We also recognize that it's really important to take care of the hunting community. So we're requesting an additional $750,000 to match some of the federal programs that provide funding. In the past decade, Oahu has added over 17,000 acres of hunting area. We have over 700,000 acres available on Hawaii Island. I've been working with the Hawaii Island hunters over the past year in my role there as the Hawaii branch manager. And we have some great programs running right now. For example, we've offered a special feral cattle hunt in cooperation with DHHL to help us remove some of the feral cattle from the watershed forest there. Additionally, the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, World Conservation Congress, we are the finalists, and we're hoping to get the bid for 2016. So the $4 million request will actually be coming through the Division of Forestry and Wildlife. I will be assisting, coordinating that effort, and we're really pleased to be part of that. It'll be a wonderful opportunity for the state and the country. It's never been hosted in the U.S. Since 1948. And this is an amazing opportunity to showcase Hawaii. Other priorities include $250,000 for continued critical management for Kure Atoll. And also, I just came from Kauai yesterday. We had some devastating fires there, and we really have to work towards hazard reduction. So there's an additional $250,000 in general funds and $250,000 in special funds to help the state implement that project and reopen those areas for recreation and restoration. And with that, if you're saving questions for later, and I'm hopeful that we gave a quick summary sheet over to you as well that has those.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new position. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Evans, Vice Chair Bowen, members of the committee. I'm Dan Quinn with the Division of State Parks. We have a number of accomplishments. I'll just go over a couple of them. We've been able to continue to expand our revenue enhancement efforts across the state, including making better use of what we call our undervalued properties. We have made a lot of progress on the ground as far as improving the parks, investing much of the capital funds that the legislature has appropriated. We've completed a few, and some of the big ones are more recently opened our what we call the linear park, or the Fort Ruger pathway around the base of Diamond Head. We paved parking lots and roadway areas. Some of the parks include Hapuna, Pu'uwalaka on Oahu, and Pu'umohuka on Oahu, and then also improved our road out to Kekahakai. We've managed actually 2 grant aids, one big one to improve the trail out to Kalalau Valley along the Nepali coast. Community effort was involved there. And then have been able to replace what was probably our flagship worst restroom in the system out at McKenzie. And that one has, I believe we've just completed making the repairs. There was some vandalism out to that one, so that was a good move. A number of big projects are underway. We're just about finished with the climate control air conditioning system at Iolani Palace. That was very critical to preserve the irreplaceable artifacts that are there. We're underway in work in the water system up in Kokay. And we're just about completed acquiring some property in central Maui for a new park there that's now being called the Central Maui Regional Sports Complex. Soon we'll be moving on a couple other big projects. The Kai'iwi Scenic Shoreline out at Makapu Point. We're going to be rebuilding the road, which serves as a trail, and the lookouts up there. You'll see work across the way here, because we'll be working on the perimeter fencing around Iolani Palace grounds. We have quite a lot of corrosion on that. It needs to be removed and repaired and repainted. And that leads to what is our only capital improvement request in our budget for the LNR 806 program, which is the state parks program, and that is $5 million more in capital funds for that Central Maui Park. We have some funds in hand, but we need some more to be able to build out what's being called phase 1 of the improvements there. Our other legislative issues, one that comes by every year is related to the liability concerns. The lifeguard-related liability, which has allowed us to have lifeguards in place on each island at our most hazardous beach park at the contract with the counties. And it's also related to the standard established in what we call Act 82 for those warning signs that are in the parks, both county parks and state parks, and then on our trails. That sunsets at the end of this fiscal year. It's very important that we address that this session. There are a number of bills put forward by both the counties and the state, and some that are actually carried over from last session. In addition, last year the legislature modified how the department was getting funds out of the transient accommodations tax. Previously, the department had been getting $1 million split between the Na'alahele Trails program and state parks. During conference committee last year, it was changed. That $1 million was removed, and the department was then allotted $3 million to be divided up according to a plan approved by both the Board of Land and Natural Resources and the HTA Board. Unfortunately, the language in that bill deposited the funds into the general fund, and there was no corresponding appropriation for DLNR. So we're working together with HTA to do some housekeeping on the language of that. I think the preferred method would be to have that to go into a special fund within DLNR and then dispersed. But unfortunately, that kind of hampered our state parks operation this year, because instead of having the $900,000 to do repairs, and we hoped that was going to bump up substantially. Instead, this year so far we have nothing. So we're hoping to correct that toward the end of this fiscal year, so we can invest that money properly. And in order to accommodate that, we're asking for a $700,000 increase in our ceiling in our special fund, which is amplified this year because since we won't get the funds till the end of the fiscal, there will clearly be some carryover into the next year, so we need a greater savings moving forward. I'll remain for questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next. Hi.
Morning, Chair Evans, Vice Chair Lowen, committee members. Ed Underwood with the Division of Boating and Ocean Recreation. And I'm sure the committee knows, but our area of jurisdiction is managing all the state small boat harbors. We manage all the state launch ramps. We manage all the state offshore mooring areas. We implement the vessel registration system. We also implement the boating outreach and education program, and we're responsible for all the aids to navigation in the state. So for this last year, our updates for you folks, we're in the process of building a new administrative building down at the Kehi Small Boat Harbor. That'll get us out of paying rent each month at a savings of almost $14,000 a month. As of November of this year, our mandatory boating education program will take effect. That will mean anybody operating a motorized vessel of more than 10 horsepower will require to have boating training, approved boating training. We also have now our mandatory insurance requirement for any vessel moored in a state facility. Recently, DAGS had requested that we raise that limit to $500,000. So that took effect this month. It takes effect. It's liability insurance, and that's gone a long way to helping us retrieve costs or cover costs when boats go aground or sink at their slips. Last year, the legislature directed us to settle our mooring fees by appraised value. That took some time to implement, but that is now done. The appraisal's done. The rules have been amended. They're with the Deputy Attorney General for final review, and we hope to go out to public hearing or before the Land Board to request to go to public hearing probably by the end of February or March. We've also started a program of addressing all of the offshore moorings around the state, and I'm sure this committee's heard about Kahoolawe Bay. That was the first area we started with. We're also moving into Kailua Bay on the island of Hawaii. And then the next will be the moorings off of Lahaina, the roadstead in Lahaina. There's numerous moorings that are out there. So we're trying to standardize the moorings throughout the state. There's so many moorings that have been placed in throughout the years that we're trying to address. We're right now going to be going back before the Land Board to request a second round of public hearing on our commercial rules. That happens on the 24th of this month. We're very close. These rules will finally give us the ability to start permitting commercial activities that are occurring in all state waters. In the past, our commercial use permits are strictly for the use of the facility. It doesn't cover what actually happens in the water. And as of this week, I had 2 more requests for new activities. One is if you envision an ATV, 4-wheel ATV, you're able to drive it in the water and the wheels fold up and it turns into a jet ski. So they want to bring those into the state. Another one is a small pontoon boat. We got a call from a gentleman in Japan that want to bring them in. And what it is, it's a small pontoon that's got a submersible unit that you climb down into, and like it's got a viewing ports so you can see the sea life from that. They want to bring those in too. So we need a way to address these, and these rules will help us to do that. And we also finally, thanks to the help of our land division and Administrator Tsuji, we were able to issue our first long-term lease in our small boat harbor to Honeybee Limited USA. This is expected the first 10 years to generate an additional $900,000 to the boating special fund, and it ramps up every 10 years after that. That kind of leads me into our budget requests for our new positions, 2 of which are property management. We only have 1 property manager right now taking care of all of our properties statewide. The 2 extra positions will allow us to engage in more of these long-term leases. And boating, because we're on the water, we have some really good properties to get out. So we don't have to keep going back and amending mooring fees to cover program costs. We can do it through long-term leases of fast lands. We're also asking for 6 more general labor positions. Part of this reason is we are having a hard time maintaining our facilities on days, weekends, and holidays. The United Public Workers Union has taken the positions they will not support privatizing positions at all. So we're having to use our own staff. The island of Hawaii, for instance, only has 3 general laborers to cover the entire island, one of which doesn't want overtime. So we need the positions or the ability to hire private sector when our staff is off. But that will, it's going to take work from you folks to give us that ability. So for our accomplishments, on the island of Maui, in the Ma'alai Small Boat Harbor, we had a dirt lot that we were paying $1,000 a day for. We finally entered into a condemnation action, and we were able to stop that. We now own that lot, so that brings in another $300,000 plus to the division each year, to the Boat and Special Fund. In fiscal year 2013, we completed approximately $53 million in CIP statewide, and ongoing and currently out to bid right now is another $27 million. So our engineering section has been very busy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Evans, Vice Chair Lowen, Chair Committee. My name is Sam Lemo. I'm the Administrator of the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands. Just a couple organizational clarifications. We're actually located in, organizationally attached to the Chairperson's office. Our funding comes through Land Division, Special Land Development Fund. I have a staff of 4 planners, and I have also have a relationship with the University of Hawaii through Sea Grant, so I can house 2 other positions. One is a coastal geologist, and the other one is a coastal policy analyst. So I have a staff of 6. Our responsibilities are rather vast. And I'll just give you just a real brief description of what we're responsible for. We regulate all of the conservation lands in the state of Hawaii, meaning anybody want to use those lands needs to get authorization from us via a permit or an approval of some type. We're also responsible for doing enforcement of illegal uses of our conservation lands. And so, you know, you had Randy if you're talking about the enforcement aspect. We're actually kind of we do the prosecution once we get the facts from them. And so basically we have about 2 million acres of conservation lands in the state of Hawaii, both private and public. So we're responsible for regulating uses of those lands. Of course, the most intense issues are with respect to private lands. Also, we regulate the ocean areas. So from the shoreline out to 3 miles, we are responsible for regulating all uses of submerged land through the Conservation District Use Permit process. So, as you can imagine, there are lots of uses that are contemplated for conservation lands, and of course lots of misuses that are occurring on a daily basis. We deal with telescope development on Mauna Kea. We deal with public works projects, water supply systems, roads, sewage treatment facilities. We deal with private people, residences, commercial uses of many types. We deal with coastal issues, people doing things that impact our beaches, seawalls and those types of things. We deal with open ocean issues like aquaculture. And so we have to manage that issue day in and day out. So as you can see, the responsibilities are quite vast. We're able to accomplish what we do just through hard work, dedication, and a lot of networking, obviously. So one of the aspects of kind of an accomplishment I'd like to express to you is this recent fish pond streamlining effort that you wanted us to get involved with. And so we tasked our staff to get into this, and so we did. So we have a relationship with Conservation International and Honua Consulting and OHA, and we are very well into the fish pond streamlining process. Just to back up a little bit, why are we doing this? Is because we do have limited resources. We're always trying to find ways to streamline the regulatory process without really giving up anything from an environmental, cultural, or social perspective in terms of protection and conservation. And I think we're accomplishing that. So at this point, we've finished the programmatic environmental assessment for the fish pond streamlining effort. And we're now in talks with the Army Corps of Engineers. They will have to issue us an Army Corps General permit. We're about ready to, we have scheduled public hearings on all the islands to establish a master conservation district use application or permit to support the fish pond streamlining effort. And we are working with all of the entities and the federal resource partners and the Department of Health, Clean Water Branch to complete this process. We are really hoping that perhaps by April or May of this year, we will be able to come to you and say we accomplished our goal. But that's just the beginning. Then we have to kind of help the fish pond practitioners actually, use the system. And so we're planning on developing educational materials to facilitate the implementation of this project. So we're very proud of that. One of the other things that we do is we are very interested in coastal issues, as you may know. And so we have a coastal geologist in-house. We have a person that goes out and does shorelines all over the state, which establishes the upper reaches of the wash of the waves for the purposes of establishing the public use areas of the state. We're very much interested in issues of sea level rise and climate change and how they affect our beaches and our coastal communities. And so that's why I have a coastal geologist in-house who's working on the day-to-day basis to deal with erosion hazards, helping us with developing data to help us understand the impacts of sea level rise on our coastal areas, and working with the various entities such as ORMP, Office of Planning, and OP to consider what new policies we need in place to basically deal with what's coming in the future with climate change and sea level rise. Basically for budget requests this year, I'm seeking one new position to help us with our coastal efforts. I want to raise our spending ceiling to basically be able to accommodate this new TAT money to kind of help us with a lot of our coastal efforts in the state. And I'm looking at a CIP, I think, for Kahoolawe Beach. As you know, we also do beach restoration projects on top of everything else. We did Waikiki. So now we're looking at forming a partnership with Kahoolawe to do a similar project there. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I really appreciate you hearing me.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Frazier McGilbrey. I'm the semi-new administrator of the Division of Aquatic Resources. The Division of Aquatic Resources mission, to remind you, I'm sure you've seen before, is to manage, conserve and restore the state's unique aquatic resources and ecosystems for present and future generations. And I'll come back to the last, present and future generations as we go through here. The updates for the division, basically, after a gap of somewhere between 3 and 4 years, the division eventually hired me as the new administrator. At the end of last year, we completed a strategic assessment of the division where we had 98% of civil service and contract staff actively taking part in an internal and external review. We came up with the foundation of developing explicit strategies and new work plans for the future. And this was at a cost of less than $2,000 to the state. We achieved bringing in private funds to actually pay for that assessment. And thankfully, we maintained almost equal levels, I think is the best way to put it, of federal funding despite sequestrations, government shutdowns, et cetera, so that we're particularly pleased with that. As we move into the coming year, our major, we have a number of budget asks, but not to go through all of them. Obviously, the Ocean Resources Management Plan is key to the future of the state in managing these resources, and we know that we are grossly understaffed to be able to accomplish that. As the chairman mentioned earlier, we're responsible for 10 of the 11 outcomes of that plan, so we're seeking 4 positions there, but I believe one of my colleagues will be talking more about that. We're also looking to increase our commercial fish special fund ceiling for fisheries management projects to combat future sequestration impacts that we know are coming. We're also looking at filling some positions that were rifted in the past, particularly an aquatic biologist position to help us look at through a climate change lens on the work that we're doing, and also to replace an education specialist for the island of Oahu. And as we mentioned before in the mission, it's key to look at the future generations as we move forward. And without education specialists, future generations are the missing piece. So we feel education is particularly important. 2013 accomplishments are numerous and long, so I won't bore you with it, and I'm more than happy to send you this long list to help you sleep at night. We have numerous project specifications that we've managed to achieve. We've started the coral nursery at Anui Nui at the Fisheries Research Centre down on Sand Island. We've completed conservation action plans for 2 marine managed areas on Maui. We have in response to a long-standing community request, there's now a prohibited scuba spearfishing on the West Hawaii coastline. Our commercial fishing reports are now 95% compliant with timing requirements. The online reporting continues to grow. We're now at 65% of reports are now coming through online rather than paper that has to be transcribed. And we're delighted to announce that online reporting system actually won a national award during 2013, so we're very happy for our data team there. The value of commercial fishing topped $100 million in 2013. However, license fees are still a pittance at less than 0.3% of that value actually comes to us to manage our resources, so we're looking to do something about that in the future, we hope. Plans for 2014 is to finalize our 2014 to 2016 strategy for the Division of Aquatic Resources, to finalize a programmatic realignment and reorganization of the administrative structure to meet the challenges that are facing the state to which the division manages, particularly climate change, rising sea levels, and changes in ocean chemistry. Again, this ties back to the mission for future generations. I heard in the last few days somebody say that we don't want our grandchildren telling us you had the responsibility, you had the opportunity, but you failed and you didn't do enough. And that resonates in the back of my head, that we really do have the responsibility to manage these resources effectively for future generations. One key piece that we know we need to do is we need to fill the vacancies that we have existing as we develop that strategy and our future plans, and create proposed new positions to ensure that we have sufficient capacity to address growing threats, not only in the climate change realm, but such as aquatic invasive species. We've heard a lot about invasive species on land, but there's a significant number in the aquatic realm also. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have on that, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair, members of the committee. Russell Tsuji for Land Division. Land Division primarily is the property manager for DLNR. We probably have over 1,000 leases and executive orders managed by our staff, which actually has less than 15 land agents statewide. Total staff of about 40 for Land Division only. In LNR 101, as Sam kind of explained, it includes the Office of Conservation and Coastal Land staffing So they're within our LNR 101 budget. And to go through, as Sam mentioned, we are requesting for the under LNR 101, OCCL is requesting a coastal specialist position. Land Division is asking for a shoreline encroachment specialist position. Both positions are special funded and seeking operating funds out of our special fund to pay for these positions. Sam did mention some of the complexities of shoreline and the law of shoreline, and we have found that we have a very long backlog of encroachment issues statewide along the shoreline that either need to be resolved by way of either the owner voluntarily removing it, or if they wish to retain the wall, to request the land board approve an easement for the encroaching area. And we've been, it takes, each case needs to be evaluated on a kind of individual basis because of the complexities involved, and there's a huge backlog, and we've promised the board to bring them and try to process them as fast as we can. So we're asking for this one position. Other budget requests we're asking for is out of a general fund budget request of $1 million for to study and evaluate the infrastructure needs for these lands we have on Maui called Pule Punui. It's an interagency joint effort by DLNR, Public Safety, who has plans for a new prison out there. The county is out there, and I know the Forestry Division is looking at possibly relocating their base yard out there. So this study is $1 million just to evaluate the potential infrastructure cost for such development. I've been busy, and my division has been busy over the year working on various acquisitions. One in particular that is pretty close to wrapping it up is the 10-acre acquisition on Maui for the Maui addition of the Maui Veteran Cemetery. They have an existing cemetery, and it's an acquisition of 10 additional acres for our Maui veterans. We're close on wrapping that one up. Lipoa Point, we're studying that and currently in the appraisal process right now, waiting for the appraisal. That was an appropriation from last year. And we're been very busy with the Turtle Bay possibility of acquiring it. And that is why this year you'll see in the budget request a $40 million request from CIP. Other things that have been keeping myself and the land board very busy is items on Banyan Drive. As you probably read, Naniloa has been in bankruptcy probably for the last couple of years, and it's been very active. What transpired just recently was it got acquired by a new lessee, and myself and my engineering staff did sit down with the new lessee for the first time yesterday to go over some plans, and we are hopeful that things will look brighter for Naniloa. And we also have those other activities on Banyan. Is that I think the chair had requested that we kind of meet with some business people involving Banyan and maybe looking at the future, because we have some leases expiring soon, about 3 of them: Reeds Bay, Uncle Billy's, and Country Club. And so we're studying that right now. In addition to the working group, we have retained a planning consulting firm to help us, assist us with our market study on various issues. And I'll be around for any questions you may have afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. I'm Nicki Thompson, Registrar at the Bureau of Conveyances. Although we more often come in front of the Commerce Consumer Affairs Committees, we are very much a vital part of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. The Bureau of Conveyances is the only recording office for conveyances, for name changes, for liens, tax liens, anything that the community would want a public record. We're the only state in the nation that has a statewide recording office. Most of the jurisdictions are county or provincial level. We currently record approximately 350,000 documents per year. One of our goals is to make these documents less paper and more electronic. Since 2012, we have been moving forward with more automation. We're happy to say that nearly 10% of our documents are now being recorded electronically, so we never see a piece of paper. We never have to deal with a check. We never have to deal with any of the pieces of it. It's all done through the computer in a very secure environment. Our goal for that would be in the next 2 years to be reaching 40 to 50% of the documents. This is focused mostly on the Bureau of Conveyances public notice side, not on the land court, which is about 25% of our operation. The land court recordings are guaranteed by the state of Hawaii, so we are going to approach that one a little bit slower. Additionally, we have access to all documents back to 1992 online, so when you're sitting in your living room on a Saturday night, you can order and pull down a copy of your deed or any document you may wish for a small fee. Again, not having to go to the Bureau, not having to request them from the Bureau. That leads me to our budget request for this year. In the fiscal year 15 budget, we're asking for a ceiling increase of $475,000. This ceiling increase, $250,000 of it is a continuation of the digitization of all documents from 1976 to 1991, which are not digitized yet. They're still currently on microfilm. It would also be replacing our desktop computers that we had installed in 2008 and 9. It would be replacing our large high-speed scanners and any of the related equipment that goes along with that. The final portion of that request is $50,000 to implement a good business continuity program. We currently have backups of all of our indexes and our images all over the place, but we need to work with consultants to be able to implement a replacement system immediately if something should happen. We've been very fortunate that we haven't had any disasters. We've had one in 2008 where we went down for a day and a half, which was pretty spooky. And this would assist us in making sure that the recording office is always in operation. The piece with Department of Land and Natural Resources, which is very vital that the Bureau of Conveyances participates in, is collecting all the conveyance tax. Between 2010 and today, we have run an average of about $46 million in conveyance tax. To date, with the first 6.5 months of this year, we've already brought in $42 million. There's a lot of large transactions that have been occurring, dates back to the Alexander and Baldwin sales. Many things in Waikiki are starting to move. We've seen some large transactions on Maui. The conveyance tax supports 2 of our major programs with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and that would be the Natural Area Reserve Fund and the Land Conservation Fund. They currently get about $1.5 million from the conveyance tax each year. That's 25% and 10% respectively into those 2 funds. The question that is always on the table is if Land and Natural Resources shouldn't keep more of the conveyance tax. There is no legislative piece put in play currently on that, but there is 35% of the conveyance tax does go to the general fund. And just a reminder that the Bureau does not get any of that. We are fully funded by our recording fees, a portion of our recording fees, and any other services that we should sell. With that, I will be around for questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, kakaya kakako. My name is Mike Nahoopii, the Executive Director for the Kahoolawe Island Reserve Commission. We are, or the KIRK, we are administratively attached to the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We have a 7-member commission and a staff of 18. Our responsibility is to manage the island of Kahoolawe from the top of the mountain down to the shore and out to 2 miles of water, 28,000 acres of land and 49,000 acres of marine ecosystem. Probably the largest single conservation area under one management structure in the state. are some of our biggest achievements that we've had last year. We've been funded through the Natural Resource Conservation Service in a project to create wetland. And you think Kahoolawe is a dry island, but by removing invasive kiawe and other water-hungry species, and I think the representative has seen it, we have actually created standing ponds on the island that allows water to recharge into the ground and help restore the water table of the island. So we're creating the future for Kahoolawe, for people. One of the things that is unique about our management is that we not only manage the land and the animals and the cultural resources and the ocean, but we also integrate people into it. We are managing it so that there's a future for Hawaiians, for all people of Hawaii, to integrate themselves, to live within nature, and to see how they interact with a wild environment. Trying to keep that one last place that's wild left in Hawaii. Some other big achievements. We had CIP funding for the last couple of years to build a 2,400 square foot polycarbonate structure in a very remote location, all built by hand, done in 30 days, from the start of construction to completion, acceptance. We lived on the site. It was a combination of our contractors, Department of Engineering, inspectors slept with us, and we camped out on the site and just built the place and got it done. The engineers that were there said it's one of the most well-organized and best planned out project that they've ever seen. We also installed a photovoltaic system, 2 kilowatt photovoltaic system on the island from funding from Maui County. We are looking, one of our dreams is to become the first island that is completely self-sustaining with alternative energy, and it could be possible. We are trying to put in a CIP request to make that dream come true, that we become the first island that's self-sustaining, renewable energy, maybe even getting rid of all our fossil fuels from the island. And that is a dream, and it's very possible. Some of our other bigger projects is that we bring a lot of people to Kahoolawe. Over 1,000 people come each year to help put their hands in the soil, help plant the plants, help remove invasive species, help to pick up trash from the beaches of the tsunami debris that comes floating up on our waters. And we maintain a large base camp that houses them and helps us to deal with some of the troubles and hardships that we have out there. No water. We have still unexploded ordnance that we deal with every day. We are probably the state's experts on unexploded ordnance. We live with it, we deal with it, we see it, we walk outside our doors, we deal with it, but we make sure that everybody stays safe. And we have a very robust safety program that the Navy has looked at, and they gave us commendations about it, said we're in the forefront for the nation of how people can reuse places that have been used for weapons training around the United States. Some of the things that will be coming to the legislature this year. This year will mark the 20th year that Kahoolawe has been returned to the state of Hawaii. In 1994, Kahoolawe was returned at Palua Beach on Maui. We'll mark that this May as 20 years. And in those 20 years, we've been funded from a trust fund set up from the federal government funding. A portion of the cleanup money was given to the state of Hawaii, and we have lived on that trust fund for 20 years. The state auditors have noted that, and we have also noted for many years, that that will run out eventually. And we are looking at 2016 as the end of that trust fund. So unless some sort of external funding or revenue source can be created for Kahoolawe, we might have to shut the doors of the island and say people can no longer come because we can no longer safely manage that place and restore it and provide a home for people to have indigenous traditional practices on the island. So one of our legislation that we'll be hoping to pass this year is getting a small portion of the conveyance tax. As we just heard before, we just want something to help us continue our future. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair and members of the Committee on Land and Water. My name is Leimana Damate. I am the Executive Director for the Aha Moku Advisory Committee, that the newest attachment to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, created by Act 288 in 2012. We became operational in July of 2013, so just 6 months ago. We have a board or a committee comprised of 8 members, representatives of each of the main Hawaiian islands, who in turn represent the 42 different and distinct traditional Moku districts in the state of Hawaii. So we are the newest one. We're very happy at DLNR, and I've been working hard to make this entity as operational and feasible as they can. Some of the accomplishments since July 2013 are that we had 4 AMAC meetings or Moku meetings, committee meetings, in which a strategic plan was developed that would start to look at goals, benchmarks for the state of Hawaii on how Native Hawaiian resource practitioners can integrate their own specific resource methodologies that are site-specific into the fabric of state policy through the Department of Land and Natural Resources. In other words, for the first time, Native Hawaiian resource practitioners are opening up, and they want to share with the state of Hawaii and actively support the department in all of their knowledge on sustainability that they've practiced for many, many, many years. There were 25 Moku meetings held throughout the state on the different islands. Most of these were held by the Moku representatives themselves. There were educational, informational meetings where this whole new structure was explained. The strat plan was explained. And this was to make sure that the stakeholders in each Moku were not only Native Hawaiians, but it was open to the public. So DLNR insists on transparency, and we fully support that. Okay. Besides the strategic plan, a report form was developed. This is a communication route in which the communities of each site-specific area can route their concerns directly up the ladder to the Department of Land and Natural Resources, and finally end up with recommendations to the board as mandated by Act 288. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but they've been moving and they're very active. The legislature was not able to fund 2013-14, or 14-15 actually, 2013-14 for this committee. So the Office of Hawaiian Affairs actually was able to step in, and through a memorandum of agreement with the department was able to fund the executive director position and some of the AMAC travel. Okay, so it was a minimal amount. DLNR is thankfully putting in a budget of $110,000 that will go into effect on July 1, 2014. But because the funding was, we stretched it as much as we could, but it's anticipated that the funding for the committee is going to not be available after March 2013. So we're working with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, have asked them to amend their memorandum of agreement so that those months of March, from March to June, can be funded through an amendment to the MOA. The final thing, and one of the biggest accomplishments that we did, is that we are mandated to present a legislative report for 2014 to be done in English and Hawaiian. It has been done, it was submitted, but for the first time the report was translated by each of the islands. So when you see it, the Hawaiian for each of the islands was being done differently. It wasn't done by one person, it was an effort made by all of them, by all the islands. So thank you. Just a quick snapshot of where we are, and I'd be very happy to answer questions if the time comes up. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Carty, Chair, Chief Engineer for the Engineering Division of DLNR. The Engineering Division consists of 42 positions, and one of its primary roles is to provide engineering services to the different divisions within the department. Just to give a general overview about the progress the department has made over the last 4 or 5 years. Just general numbers, about fiscal year 10 to 13, the department was successful in obtaining about $300 million in CIP. Funds of approximately $162,000 has already been expended, as you can see through the progress through various state facilities, which include trails, parks, harbors, rockfall mitigation projects, and so forth.
We currently have about another $137 million appropriated in fiscal year 14 and 15, and this year's current ask is an additional $75 million in fiscal year 15. So we expect those numbers, expenditures to go up because this is a lapsing year, and you'll see more progress over the next year. Our program ID is LNR 141, which is Water and Land Development, and that basically gives us the authority to develop water sources for state projects statewide. That ID also includes our mineral resources, which is our geothermal section, and also our rockfall mitigation and flood control program. LNR 810 is prevention of natural disasters, which essentially is our dam safety program to carry out the mandate Dam and Reservoir Safety Act of 2007 that was passed by the legislature, and also our flood control as well. Some of the accomplishments the engineering division had, aside from implementing hundreds of millions of dollars in CIP, we also were successful in completing the filling of our mineral resources section. So that's important because, as you know, there's existing geothermal happening in Big Island, and there's also maybe future. So these positions ensure that the activity, such as well drilling and other activity that goes on, can be properly managed and the resource can be protected. So we finally finished filling those positions last year. And yeah, thanks to the legislature for actually reestablishing the position a couple of years ago. We also are involved with water development projects. The last 2 years, we were successful in getting about $1 million to complete the state water projects plan. The importance of this document is that it looks out 20 years and it identifies the water demands statewide. We have two different efforts going on to that. One is specifically in Kona that we're looking at, because Kona has a very unique system and there's very high demands in Kona. We have one effort focusing only on the Kona demands and one effort looking at statewide efforts. We're also having some water drilling. We're actually exploring for water in upcountry Maui as well. We have a current appropriation to do that. So we're working on water development projects. We also want to iterate that we're moving forward with the planning and design of a new West Hawaii admin community center. So this is going to be located near Honokoha Arbor, and the benefits of having that, as many of you know who have visited the Kona area, most of the departments are sort of fragmented, so to speak. Our aquatic resources, our DOCARE, our state parks, our boating, they're all in sort of separate locations. So what this does is that it brings the department's functions together in one area. Part of this effort is also to create a community center as well in that same area. And what that would do, not only for West Hawaii residents, but the entire island, is that'll bring a public meeting space which can be used for public meetings. I think the intent is to have video conferencing capabilities. Board meetings can be held there, so people won't have to fly to Honolulu. So it's an effort that we're starting the planning and design for. There's no current monies asked this session, but maybe in the future. Our ask this year, just for engineering division, is that for the mineral resources, since we filled the positions, because those positions are so specialized, we had to hire them at a step above the minimum. So we have $89,000 requests under LNR 141 for basically payroll shortfall, arbitrated raises, and fringes for those specific positions. We currently have a $3 million ask for additional rockfall. The last 6 years, we're working on about $16 million of rockfall projects. So this is just, rockfalls are unpredictable, they always come, so those numbers always change. So this year we have a current ask of $3 million. And Alawai Canal, it's been about over 10 years since we dredged it last. We have another $2 million to start the process to dredge the canal again. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Aloha and good morning. Thank you for having me, Chair Evans, Vice Chair Lowens, members of the committee. My name is Joshua Atwood. I'm the Invasive Species Coordinator for the DLNR Division of Forestry and Wildlife. And part of my duties are to coordinate the Interagency Hawaii Invasive Species Council. If you're not familiar with the Invasive Species Council, or the HISC, it's a 6-department interagency council created by the legislature in 2003. And its formation was in part a response to a 2002 Legislative Reference Bureau study that looked at the invasive species needs in Hawaii as far as stronger coordination and policies between departments, as well as an estimated $50 million annual need to address invasive species in the state. As part of the HISC's functions, as described under Chapter 194 in Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Council is responsible for putting forward interdepartmental coordination and policy initiatives, and we also are responsible for fiscal planning among departments. To facilitate this process, the Invasive Species Council disperses funds that support new and innovative projects that respond to emerging threats and priority issues. The HISC is a very unique and nimble funding tool for the state government in that it has a budget that's reviewed by 6 state department directors or their designees, and it's very flexible in that it allows those 6 state departments to respond to emerging threats in any given fiscal year. The HISC doesn't directly manage any of these projects. We provide partial funding support towards these efforts that we consider to be strategic efforts towards invasive species prevention, control, research, or outreach. Some of the examples that you might be familiar with are the island-based invasive species committees. We support the Hawaii Ant Lab, which employs the world's foremost expert on little fire ant, and which is currently the primary resource for the public to get advice on how to manage little fire ants on their property, as well as producing research on how to control invasive ants in larger scale control efforts. We support the Hawaii Pacific Weed Risk Assessment, which is the only quantitative tool for assessing the potential for species to become invasive in Hawaii's environment. And we also support innovative projects in aquatic invasive species control, including the Kaneohe Bay Restoration Project, support for hull fouling and ballast water coordination and response to Japanese tsunami marine debris. We support biocontrol initiatives, and we also work on interdepartmental coordination for the restoration of functions for vector control, namely monitoring for invasive species that are vectors of human disease at points of entry, such as mosquitoes that might carry malaria, dengue fever, or yellow fever. The initial goal for the Hawaii Invasive Species Council when it was created back in fiscal year 2005 was $5 million annually in general funds. So that's just a portion of that estimate of the $50 million needed annually to address invasive species in Hawaii. That's a recognition that the Invasive Species Council does not provide all funds necessary for invasive species work. There's also other state funds, federal funds, county funds, and private funds that are involved in addressing invasive species in the state. Initially, the legislature provided $2 million in general funds annually from fiscal years 2005 to 2009, and then during the economic downturn, $0 were appropriated in general funds. For the fiscal year 14-15 biennium, there is $750,000 appropriated for each fiscal year. And because these amounts are cannot sustain the progress that has been made in previous years or address new issues as they arise, DLNR has supplemented these projects to some level as the administrative host of the Interagency Invasive Species Council. But unfortunately, a 2013 bill to add the HISC as a designated beneficiary of the conveyance tax was denied. And so this year, we conducted an exercise to estimate the amount needed in general funds to maintain project progress and avoid losses of staff or loss of achievements that have been made over the years. So that amount was estimated at $5.75 million. So in addition to the $750,000 we already have appropriated, that would be an additional $5 million. However, our administration budget has identified $1 million as the appropriate supplemental request. And so the department is supporting $1.75 million total budget for the Invasive Species Council in FY15, though we do appreciate any other efforts to support invasive species funding and work. You should have received in your packet a handout kind of describing what some potential uses for invasive species funding in FY15 could be. Each year we provide funding on a competitive basis, so projects apply for funds. So it's difficult to say what exactly the FY15 budget would address, but there's a hypothetical breakdown of different areas that the HISC traditionally supports, such as invasive ant work or statewide detection and response to the invasive species committees. If you have any questions, I'll be here to answer them, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Aloha, Representative Evans, Representative Lowen, Representative Hano, Representative Cullen, Representative Say, and Representative Lee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. My name is William Tam. I'm the Deputy Director of the Commission on Water Resources Management for the Department. As you well know, the Water Commission manages about 376 surface water streams and diversion works processes in the state, all the groundwater. We are responsible for dealing with water use permits in managed areas, and there are now contested cases in major disputes with regard to the Naveha Maui waters, the East Maui waters. There are 2 cases on remand to the, involving Molokai groundwater. As you well know, matters in Kona are getting a lot of attention with the proposed designation by the National Park Service to manage the waters there. There are disputes on the west end of Kauai involving the Keikaha and west end region, the former AMFAC lands, and how that's handled. So there are a lot of things that are on the Commission's plate. We have had, during the last 5 years, our staff was cut back from 22 to 12. We're back up to 21. We're requesting 2 additional, an engineering tech and a planner in order to be able to handle some of these matters. One of the critical things, which is finally, after 6 years, come into working order, is the water resource reporting. In the past has been done by hand on pieces of paper. We have over 2,000 wells. We have a lot of unpermitted wells that need to be closed. So we finally automated this, and we are now doing automated reporting, and that will be rolling out to the private wells. We've beta tested it with the Board of Water Supply and the large users. So that'll make a lot of difference. It'll also make a lot of difference in 2 other regards. One is enforcement, which we've not been able to do because we literally haven't been able to process the paperwork. And the second is in our hydrologic understanding. We've, through a series of contracts and a series of work with the Board of Water Supply and the USGS, trying to get our groundwater modeling updated. We expect to have more studies finished next fall with that. You may be interested to know that we're like California in some ways and unlike them in others, but today Governor Brown declared the entire state of California in a drought emergency. They have the worst rainfall recharge patterns going on now in the last 153 years. So the problems they have there are the kinds of problems that are happening elsewhere in the world. The World Economic Forum yesterday declared water to be the #3 global risk of the top 10 in the world. So it's something that at an international level is becoming more and more clear as, for example, large grain producers like China and India and the United States have been essentially using up the close near water or inexpensive water for their agriculture, are now having to reach further and further away in their limited groundwater supplies. The Commission is tasked with, in particular with surface water, with doing in-stream flow standards, which are particularly difficult but particularly important, because in order to decide how to allocate water as between in-stream uses and off-stream uses, you've got to spend the time to do the analysis. And unlike the mainland, where you have large, deep flows of rivers that you can calculate the volume necessary to maintain a salmon run, for example, Hawaii's ecological systems are unique. There's nothing quite like water flowing off steep slopes into the ocean quickly to have a very unpredictable ecology. And it turns out that studying that takes time, and it takes a lot of resources and field work, and that simply has to be done. The aquatic life that arose in Hawaii as a result of this is unlike any place in the mainland, so we can't use their models. It just doesn't work. So it is time-consuming, but it's essential, because As you probably are also aware, as a result of the climate change, the patterns of the rainfall hitting the windward sides of the islands are changing. We're getting thinner clouds from a variety of climatic reasons that are resulting in a decline in the rainfall of unfortunately, on the order of 20% in some of our streams in the last 80 years, and the groundwater recharge as a result, and we're working on that and expect to have studies done by the end of the summer. The amount of rain that's hitting the windward sides of the islands has declined 10 to 12% just in the last 20, 25 years. As you also may know, the rainfall patterns that are going to occur in the future are going to be more erratic. The leeward sides are going to be drier, and as a result, there'll be less recharge, because what you ideally like, just from a recharge point of view, is even regular rain that percolates down. When it all comes in large buckets, then it runs into the ocean, takes the soil with it, and affects our reefs. So the issues of how we're going to deal with water in the future are significant. I will leave to a later time questions you might have, but I would like to transition and actually into a slightly different area, and that is the Ocean Resource Management Plan. I want to thank you for our conversations and offering to have a separate hearing on the subject, and Jesse Suki from the Office of Planning is behind me, and we concur that this deserves a full hearing unto itself. And as you may know, the final version of this was adopted by many people and signed off last July. It's on the website of the Office of Planning if you'd like to look at it. I do have copies for you of just the critical matrix of the responsibilities of the different departments, and if I could give you its copies. I've reproduced a simple matrix on page 49 to 58 of how the responsibilities for this management plan are distributed. And as the chairman represented a little bit earlier, the Department of Land and Natural Resources is the lead on 5 of the 11, but actually the operating agency de facto, because we're the ones with the people on the ground, on 10 of the 11 management plans. And when we looked at this, we realized that we are not staffed to handle it. And so one of the things that you've heard from the other administrators and the other divisions is some requests to build up that capacity. And I would just highlight for you that Budget and Finance was kind enough to agree to our request for $1 million to cover 7 positions, which will be distributed 4 into aquatic resources, 2 into boating, into DOCARE enforcement, and 1 into boating. And real quickly, what those 7 positions would do, we first provide a coordinator for the Ocean Resource Management Plan. Now, just as an acronym to be clear about, there is something different called an ORMA, which is an Ocean Recreation Management Plan, which is under Division of Boating. That's one of the things we'll get to in just a moment. This is the overall resource plan. So we need to have that kind of coordination just within our department to integrate how this is going to function. It will be within aquatic resources as proposed. Secondly, as the chairman may describe in more detail later, in our aquatic resources, we are moving toward a community-based sustainable fishing management model, which is labor-intensive. It means that communities will be more involved in planning and managing and doing the enforcement in our communities. The notion is that's where people live, that's what they know. Trying to manage the entire ocean with a few enforcement officers and literally applying those rules is a model that simply doesn't work. If we don't engage the communities and get them involved, we're not going to be successful. So we need to work on a coordinator there. One of the things that you will know is that our relationships with the federal government are very complex on the ocean with regard to corals, with regard to fishing. There are a lot of federal rules, a lot of state rules, and so we need a specialist who can work and help us do those kinds of integrations. Third, within DAR, we're asking for a crisis response and invasive species coordinator. While this doesn't get a lot of attention dealing with groundings, for example, we have 140 boat groundings a year in Hawaii. Now, in many cases, those destroy coral. So we need to go out there and understand how do we collect money from them, how do we make sure we don't have this happen in areas that are important. Likewise, invasive species are problems with biofouling and discharges from vessels. On the DOCARE side, we're requesting two positions. One is a special projects coordinator within DOCARE, and this again supports the work that Randy Owo spoke about, which is our effort to use our internal administrative processes in addition to the criminal enforcement, because we can do a lot of things faster. You know, there are a lot of aquatic-related activities, for example, that are sort of like a parking ticket with regard to fish size. We have in the past had a great deal of difficulty using the criminal enforcement mechanisms to do a lot of natural resource management. I mean, simple example, you have to go to a prosecutor and convince a prosecutor that this case is worth attention. Then you have to go to a judge, and you've got to convince a judge beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case. You have to have the enforcement officers there. You have a trial. You're dealing with another institution, and often it's later. And with natural resource management, often the judge would go, I've got 3 felony cases sitting in the hallway. You're telling me this guy caught 3 fish undersize? It doesn't register in terms of actual management. So there are cases where we do have to use the criminal law, but we need to be able to be more efficient and get our management and our regulation and enforcement much tied together. So that's what we want to do there. We also need an Ocean Mackay Watch coordinator to work with the communities on building that capacity, because our first goal is to educate people and try to get them to change their behavior. And it is like a curve that there will be some bad actors ultimately you can't get to without going to criminal enforcement, but mostly we'd like to educate people, work with people, and get that compliance. Finally, in the DOBOR area, amazingly enough, right now, there is no single person tasked to manage the recreational side of our oceans. We don't have a budget for it. We don't have staffing for it, and yet the user conflicts are quite amazing. I would close just by bringing your attention to a study done in 1994 by a man named Craig McDonald at DBDT. And this study is now 20 years old, and you can imagine the consequences, but I would turn your attention to the second to the last page to a chart. And on this chart, at the very back, it shows you a series of circles in there. And in those circles in that chart, it shows you the size of ocean recreation in the overall economy. It is a very high, no one had aggregated this data, but the number of people employed in ocean recreation, the size of the market, and its relative size to the overall maritime industry and agriculture is quite amazing. I think people have underestimated the importance of user conflicts and of recreational activities in the ocean, and we've got to get a handle on it. And the Office of Planning has done a fantastic job of putting together a plan, and they will bring other folks together and talk about that later. But the on-the-ground, nitty-gritty work comes down to our department. And we are just going to need more help doing this because, as Randy indicated, when you go out 3 miles and you put circles around all the islands and you figure out how much area you've got to cover, the notion that a couple of DOCARE enforcement officers are going to cover from North Kohala down to Kahoolawe, going around South Point, is an absurdity. So we are going to have more conflicts in these areas. There's going to be more people who are going to pay attention. The ocean recreation community is quickly wanting to put more moorings down. So this is an area that is going to need a lot more attention in the future. I want to thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, representatives, my name is Alan Downer. I'm the new administrator for the State Historic Preservation Division. I apologize for being late. We had our monthly status call with the Park Service this morning and didn't realize that today would be the morning that Honolulu would outdo itself for traffic. It took me close to 2 hours to get here. I apologize for that. For those of you who haven't met, I come to Hawaii after 27 years of directing the Navajo Nation Historic Preservation Department, where we went from one person, that was me, to a staff at its height of 75. I have over 35 years of experience in historic preservation. Along the way, before I got to Navajo, I worked for the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, where at the time staff was organized along the lines of states rather than agencies, and And I was lucky enough to have Hawaii to be one of my states. Unfortunately, I was not lucky enough to ever get out here. Every time there was an on-site, somebody in Washington decided that it was way too important for me to handle, and they had to take the trip. So this is, the principal point of this is to give you an update on the status of CAP 2, and just to give you a quick outline of where we are on this. The CAP 2 identifies 45 substantive items that we have to provide deliverables for. So far, 7 of those items have been completed and accepted by the Park Service. 6 of those are in final revision process. 3 are processes that are in a testing phase where we've got the process in, we hope, final form, but we want to see it work in practice before we say this is what we're doing. 8 of these items required clarification from the Park Service, where there are things, despite 35 years of experience, I looked at what they were asking for and really couldn't tell. We got 7 of those clarified this morning. One of them, the Park Service still doesn't quite understand what they're asking for, and obviously we can't provide that to them until we know what they're asking for specifically. 13 of these things are things that are underway. In a few cases, they are things that we have to actually get started, but they require completion of other activities before we can get that. One of their items raises state policy internet security questions that we're going to have to figure out how to resolve. They want to have, essentially, they want us to provide public access to our database. And as I understand the policy, it's impossible for the public to directly access the state's database. So we'll have to house that off, outside the state system, and how we do that is a question I haven't quite answered yet. So to sum it up, I think we're on target. I was a little bit of a panic 2 months ago when I arrived. And it took me some time to sort out exactly where we were on this, but I'm actually pleased to say we're much farther along than I thought we were at this point. 3 of the things that are on the list represent what I would sort of describe as big lifts. 2 of them are things where the branch managers are being asked to do things that they have never done before, and they're a little bit panicked by that. But they are things that people in the office have done, so we will get that done with a little bit of angst on the part of some of the staff, but I'm confident it'll happen. The final issue is the audit, and for reasons that I have no idea about, the requirement that SHPD be part of the state single audit comes from them Park Service having designated SHPD as a high-risk recipient. That notice was never given to the fiscal office, so they weren't aware of it. Had they been aware of it, they would have notified the auditors. The auditors would have taken care of it. The fiscal office is aware of that now. We will be in the 2014 audit. In addition, the prior 3 years, we will be contracting with an independent firm to do an audit just of SHPD, meeting the federal A133 standards. So. I'll be happy to answer questions if we have time.
Okay. The only thing is, because the audience is statewide televised, could you explain what you meant by CAP?
Well, the CAP is the corrective action plan that the Park Service imposed because of their initial evaluation of the deficiencies of SHPD. There was a corrective action plan almost 4 years ago now. After 2 years, the state had not completed all of the items on that, and so there was a second corrective action plan, and I should point out that the initial corrective action plan had 40 items on it. Of those, 13 were mandatory, 17 were recommended actions. 16 of the actions taken as a result of the CAP 1 were accepted by the Park Service, so there should have been 24 things left, but there are 41. So the Park Service added requirements in CAP 2 that were not present in CAP 1. So.
Okay, and Shifty is State Historic
State Historic Preservation Division. I apologize.
Can you quickly just, what are the duties and responsibilities, just to...
Well, the overall duty of the division is to manage and protect the historic and cultural resources of the state. And we do that, the sort of the most visible thing that we're involved in is, of course, review of projects for impacts on historic properties and archaeological sites. That includes a very large portion of the county permits. Right now, any building that's over 50 years old, any improvement that requires a county permit has to come to SHPD for review. We're working on trying to make it clear and providing guidance to the counties that makes it clear that we only need to, it's not just a matter of how old the building is, but it needs to have some character that makes it historically significant or architecturally significant. We're hoping to reduce the some 7,000 reviews we do to focus on the stuff that's really more important rather than just it's old. Okay?
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. So members, do you want to bring a closing statement or? Okay, please.
And in a quick closing, I would also like to point out a few things that staff has not. So with the Division of Conservation and Resource Enforcement, they laid out a pretty grim sort of understanding of what we're up against statewide, comparative to police department. I want to point out that in spite of all of that, we have a very vibrant Makai Watch program, which encourages communities to continue to report to us the violations, but with training in ways that those reports can be adjudicated or prosecuted much more efficiently. A result of that has been increases, because we've worked with the Oahu Prosecutor's Office, we've had increases in the numbers of cases that have been successfully prosecuted and in terms of the adjudication. So for example, what would have normally been a $25 slap on the wrist for a gentleman who took a motorized vessel into Waimea Bay when there were activities occurring, that gentleman ended up having a $900 fine and 6 months probation. These are the kinds of cases that we need to get out there for the general public to see that things are happening. There are increased fines for people who have been caught with illegal nets, up to $300, what would normally be a $25 slap on the wrist in the past. High-profile cases, we will consider both criminal and civil opportunities. So coming up to the land board next week Friday is a civil penalty against a film company who disregarded our disapproval of a film permit and went out and launched equipment and filmed off of the Waianae coast. And so we are going to be asking the land board for a $5,000 fine on that film company. We are taking the responsibility of managing the resources of the state of Hawaii very, very seriously and working in very innovative ways, despite not having as much resources as we should have, to get things done. The governor, after seeing the Little Red Fire Ant video, being the smart man that he is, recognizes that the $1 million that he approved in our administrative budget is likely not enough. So if the legislature seeks to add additional monies to that request, I'm sure that the governor will look very favorably upon that. He leaned over and actually told me that. So I just want to make sure that that message goes loud and clear with regards to invasive species. Parks, what you don't hear about is the cleanup of all of the consent decree for all of our cesspools that EPA has determined needed to be fixed. And with help from the legislature, we are almost in complete compliance. We have done incredible creative things in Kealakekua Bay to bring the drug dealing, coercion, all of the things that the community asked us to do to deal with Napopo. We've done that. We're almost there. We're working with the county to deal with some commercial activity that's occurring from private property. Again, very innovative. We actually had to shift jurisdictions of different divisions to state parks so that we could have a comprehensive plan to deal with and bring under control these activities. Harbors, they never mentioned tsunami repairs. You know, getting Kailua Kona Pier inspected and ready for business within a week of the tsunami represented $20,000 a week in cruise ship revenue to just the businesses on that front street. We were able to do that. OCCL, you're going to hear more about the houses, Rocky Point. OCCL has turned around requests for permits that we feel are the appropriate response and working with the counties within a week to allow for sand to be pushed on that beach. That is record time in both occasions. When the erosion was occurring further on the north side, and then again when the erosions turned and began on the south side. The Division of Aquatic Resources has been responding to requests from community-based management initiatives. So we have very shortly plans to bring administrative rules and management plans in different areas of the state because we recognize that we can't do everything, that we have to work with community. So tying these, I'll refer to hakuing these seemingly independent efforts, the inclusion of the Makai Watch, the creation of community-based management, increasing the cooperation with the prosecutors, we see all of these things as a way to be more effective, and we're actually seeing more effective prosecution being done. The CAP, I really have to point out to the CAP, and it's not sour grapes on my part, but a great deal of frustration on my part, because when we came in, this administration said we would fix the CAP. The challenge for us is we've been presented with a moving target. And as you heard today, the target still continues to move. So I would like all of the legislators to understand that the department has been working very, very hard at trying to complete this requirement for the state, for national parks to deal with the challenge in SHPD. Having expressed that frustration, we will comply. We will get it done. But I just want, when you hear criticism of the hardworking people in SHPD, I want you to understand why the CAP is taking a while. And then finally, before I wrap up, I would certainly like to, I hope this has allowed you to understand this tremendous scope of responsibility that the department has and is privileged to have and is happy to have, and understand the breadth of the responsibilities of all of the people that sit behind me. And then I would just like to thank them for all of their hard work and dedication in trying to fulfill the responsibility. And with that, I think we'd all be happy to take questions.
All right. Thank you. Members?
Okay. He's here. And you're talking about the tsunami repairs, and I mean, thank you for all of your presentations. I mean, it's really enlightening to know that all of you are working hard to make our department, in preservation, conservation, and also maintaining the resources that we do have, because our resources in the state of Hawaii is dwindling, because we really don't have a lot of management practices in place that should have been in place. For example, bee picking. I mean, Oahu, you really ran out because people don't understand that, they're seasonal, and you don't want to run out and then you go to another place at Maha'o and go over there pick. Yeah, like on Kauai, people from Kauai going to Bihao. So on the tsunami one, I wanted to know, do you have monies in place to fix Hulihe'e Palace? It does come under your...
Yes, Hulihe'e Palace, I think with the exception of the rock wall associated with that little fish pond, all of the damages that can be demonstrated to have occurred relative to the tsunami have been fixed. There are concerns now about the building, right? And we have agreed to send an engineer to take a look at the process there. What we believe is occurring, and when I say we, the non-engineers, is that we've sealed up the basement, and that the water level, with climate change is starting to rise. And as such, if you seal up something on the bottom, it creates some buoyancy. And as the tides come in higher and higher, the building now is starting to lift because it has buoyancy. So we have to confirm that with some structural engineers, and we will be taking a look at that soon. As soon as we identify what the real problem is and identify some solutions, we will be coming back for some additional funding to deal with that.
Tell people that are asking about it, I can just tell them that it's a work in progress. You are looking at it because they really feel like nobody cares.
No, we have met with the president of the organization at least twice now, and we'll follow up.
Okay. And I do understand user conflicts, especially in small boat harbors, because I do have one, Pohoiki, because the Bay Area is DOCARE. Then when you reach to the top of the land, it becomes county, so that multiple jurisdiction is hard for enforcers, and I understand that. So how can we fix those kind of problems?
We have actually met with Hawaii County representatives and are exploring the creation of a swim area. We're actually looking at 3 different areas. The creation of swim areas so that the children of that area will have a safe place to swim, and then the vessel traffic, which has to make that very sharp turn, can come in without having to worry about interactions with children swimming at the ramp.
Right, I understand that, but it's an ongoing kind of generational type where families from the area used to monitor the unwritten laws, but now when we have new people coming into the area, they just have no respect for what's happening. So we always have these, yelling at the fishermen, and the people already know. There's a big sign that says no swimming, and then parents tend to be not responsible of taking care of their children, and so they're yelling at the fishermen and telling them, oh, no run over my kid, you're not going to lick you or whatever. Of course it's worse language, but just to put it nicely. And then it upsets the fishermen because that's their living. And Pohoiki is one of the best places to go fishing because it's like the one of the top dollars in the state that brings in a lot of money.
Best place to go Palo'ahi or
Yeah,
Ikashibi fishing.
Palo'ahi, where you go Palo'ahi or Ikashibi or trolling. Because I have done all of that, so I just, want to make sure that it's an ongoing discussion and we can at least find some solutions for that. Because I can understand other places with the same type of user conflicts.
We understand the problem, and actually Senator Ruderman, I believe, is going to be introducing some CIP monies to do the plan and design for making someplace more attractive for the younger children to swim.
Yeah, but we already have a place. We already have the one pond. It's just that people not going there.
I can send the enforcement officer down, but then he'd be an extremely unpopular person with everyone.
That's okay, because he's just doing his work. Doesn't matter, you don't have to be popular. I mean, because I want to follow all my upgrades of my parks, like Mackenzie and Lapachi State Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lowen, do you have a question?
I do have questions, but I might save them because I know we're short on time, and I have some maybe kind of extensive questions for certain departments. So maybe I'll call and try to schedule meetings, and we'll go through some things then.
Thank you. Representative Say?
Just a couple of questions, Chair Aila. The presentation today was excellent by all branches division chiefs at the Dept of Land. More importantly today is to be able to find out what your department's budget that was submitted, what included in the governor's budget, the supplemental budget.
I do not have an exact number for you right now, Representative, but I could. I would say that the department has fared, relative to other departments, the Department of Land and Natural Resources has fared proportionally much better than all of the other departments.
Okay. It's just that when we follow up with the budget worksheets, the areas of concern like the Conservation Resource Enforcement Office, do we have a model as far as, can you folks share with us how large an area should one individual be covering from the, from the Ahupua'a?
But we could actually, and it would be very surprising, share with you the number of officers that we have per square mile for each area, and you would find it incredibly surprising.
It's just that the public doesn't understand, right? Like, I think Mr. Owo and his staff on Maui, when there's the shark attacks, got to be out there, boom. And then they're not back in the forest or the rainforest looking at other enforcements. I don't know. Sometimes it's just catch up. But I would like to ask another question, and this is in regards to now looking at the next biennium. Because all of you will be here. Can we start planning to help Mr. Nahoopii when his federal monies dry out? Can we help the Bureau of Conveyance, where I did talk to Chair about why is it that the past 4 years, the House passes a bill dealing with the controlling interests of stocks and sales of stocks and real estate, that we don't get any conveyance tax? Or can you, Lisa Ann?
Nicki.
Oh, Nicki, just a question about our very good friend who bought the nice island from Mr. Murdoch. Was there any tax to that, conveyance tax to that island?
On the sale of the company, there was no conveyance tax. When the land transactions, there were specific parcels that did transfer, conveying the land from one person to another. That was, conveyance tax was paid. You're absolutely correct. There is legislation out there, proposed legislation for controlling interest transfers.
Because this bubble is only going to last so much. As far as the conveyance tax being at, what, 40 million at this point in time?
Yeah, we're already at 42 million to date.
And, you'll have that bubble. Everybody's going to get a portion of that percentage, and then the bubble drops back down. And then Chair Aila gets stuck, and Nicki gets stuck. Find more resources, because the appetite is there to continue on what was given or earmarked. So that is just some of my thoughts. For the employees, just keep up the good work. I just hope Dan Quinn doesn't retire. Bill Tam, that I've known since the 70s and 80s. Mr. Owo, and all of you who have been here for maybe 10, 20 years. I still recall when we had problems with the Bureau of Conveyance, right? It was so antiquated. Now, Mr. Dowling? Downey? You got the problem with state historic preservation, with the cats. But the scary part is that this story that was presented this morning by all of you, I hope it is shared with all the members so that there is a basis or a foundation of where we're moving. Do not know where we're at today doesn't help our cause. So I just wanted to share my thoughts with all of you, because you folks have done a fantastic job with the limited resources that you folks have had these past 10 years.
Thank you for saying that, Representative.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have just a couple questions. There's kind of these bigger issues that we talked about, and that's, your federal partnership and what kind of money comes from the federal government to address some issues, and maybe that money is going to dry up. But, we have the marine debris, for example, as an issue that's affecting us. We also have, critical habitat designation that's affecting us. I know that you were instrumental in getting a sustainability coordinator into the department. So, and then also you're looking at possibly the International Union of Conservation Nations, which it came up in the Budget Finance Committee when you spoke to them, and their concern was we may give money to try to bring them here, but will it really cover the cost, and will you be coming back to the legislature? So when you have all these kind of outside of things that you can't control, where's the federal government in this in terms of really our partnership? And should we as legislators just know that we're going to be doing the heavy lifting no matter what. We'll be doing the heavy lifting on a lot of these issues.
I think in some cases, we will be. The state will become more responsible for threatened and endangered species, critical habitat. But there is some commerce that occurs with these, well, I should repeat this, I should say it this way. There are some commerce benefits to private industry that occurs when the department takes on these responsibilities. So there needs to be a recognition that as part of those benefits to private developers and private businesses, they need to share part of the responsibility in terms of committing funds for long-term care of the recovery of these threatened and endangered species. There will always be some federal funds associated with that because of the way that the manufacturer's taxes are on either fishing equipment or hunting equipment. There will always be some base funds there. So I think we have seen last year and this year probably the adjustments in the federal budget coming to Hawaii, unless there is, sequestration 2 or something like that at the federal level. So I think we've adjusted appropriately and that we are able to meet the needs. And I have First Deputy here wants to share some.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, Esther Kia Aina, First Deputy for DLNR. Your question is very important, and so I couldn't sit in the front row there and not respond to it. And that is the role of the federal government with regard to burden sharing on critical resources, especially with regard to the monument and the sanctuary. So first, let me address the issue on IUCN. I am confident that with regard to the budgetary request for DLNR, which is $4 million, and HTA, which I understand Mike McCartney is trying to determine what avenue he will pursue the $2 million, we have no intention of coming back again. And the reason for that is that the total cost will be $11.5 million. We have already received commitments of $8.5 million, and we haven't even tried yet. I'm fully confident that not only will we meet the $11.5 million come May, which is when the final decision will be made by IUCN, but we will likely go beyond that to have more than adequate funding for that conference. The federal government, specifically the State Department, is unable to provide funding for that, and that is because of their budgetary impact. One of the conditions for providing U.S. support was that the state of Hawaii will be liable. It does not preclude the Departments of Interior, Commerce, or USDA or DOD from providing funding. Of all the issues that I feel there is a disparity on with regard to federal funding, it is for our sanctuary and our monument program. I do strongly support our efforts to secure a state recognition of the importance of the program, so the two bills before you are critical. Having said that, I feel that NOAA is using sequester as an excuse of why they're short funding our programs. As I expressed earlier last year in the session, minimally 50% reduction in funding when we only have 2 staffers per program, when respectively they have 20 for the sanctuary and 40 for the monument. So where's the parity when the state of Hawaii had to approve the federal government coming into our waters to provide this relationship to move forward? So I think in the future, DLNR and the governor's office has to look at critical areas where the federal government should be more fair with us. We could understand sequester, but only to a certain point. With regard to all other programs for the department, I feel that it's a very strong relationship, especially the Department of Interior. But for the other 2 programs, very disparate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You should ask her what she really thinks.
Yeah, well, and also ask her, we want to, we don't know when you're leaving, and will you be testifying in front of the committee, you think, for a while, or?
Yes. Yes, I'll answer that, yes.
Madam Chair, DC is gridlocked is a understatement. Right before Christmas, a lot of controversial nominees for the Obama administration got passed. And one would think that the logical result would be that non-controversial nominees like myself would be voice voted out of the U.S. Senate in between major votes. That clearly is not occurring. So one party is objecting to the movement of nominations, and as a result, the leadership of the Senate has to be looking for avenues to be able to move most of the nominations forward. So there is not a time frame. I do know that the Secretary of Interior is anxious to have her team together, and I continue to work with them. If I had to give a time frame for my continuing to be here, it would probably be within a month.
Okay. All right.
But
Thank you very much.
I do have to say that it has been an honor to work with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I have always supported them since I was in high school, and to have been able to work with all of my colleagues who really, really care to fulfill the mission of the department with little resources is something to be proud of for the state of Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. With regards to the marine debris, yes, we are having marine debris land on the shores of Hawaii, but we have been able to manage that within the funding that has been provided to us by the Japanese government through NOAA, as well as our own appropriations. We do have, as the legislature allotted for last year, $2 million in CIP funds, and that is very, very important. So should we have a huge catastrophic event of marine debris, we would have that money in reserve. Should we have a ship, because there's still a few large ships floating around out there that are unaccounted for, or something that large end up in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, so within the Papahanaumokuakea National Marine Monument, about half of that would be immediately needed just to start things up. If we're successful in getting the World Conservation Congress to Hawaii, I'm very confident that we can showcase not only Hawaii but the nation to the rest of the world and learn from the rest of the world. But what that would also do is it would highlight Hawaii as a place where international NGOs with funding available can come to Hawaii and learn how they can help us outside of government appropriations manage the precious natural resources that we have in Hawaii. So I would add that with regards to IUCN.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. Representative Hano, one last question.
Yeah. Because we're talking about the World International Conference is going to be here, shouldn't we showcase some of our Native Hawaiian ancestral wisdoms from the past, like our Ahapua systems, our management of kapu systems, gathering rights?
That is a big part of the presentations that will be made during the site visit of the selection committee next month. What Hawaii also has to share with the world is the integration of traditional and customary management practices along with Western science practices, and we've been able to combine the two here very successfully, and so we hope that that would be one of the opportunities to showcase in the site visit, but more importantly, it would make up an important part of the World Conservation Congress here, because internationally there is not enough recognition or weight given to indigenous knowledge. So I would agree with you.
I agree with that. Because after all, we have 11 of the 13 climatic changes here. We also have the most endangered species in the world. I mean, whether it's plants, animals. So, I mean, that is the showcase.
I would like to thank all of you for allowing us to share what the department does, doesn't do sometimes, but we're working on it. What we'll be doing in the future with your statewide audience. So thank you for the venue,
Yeah.
Chair Edwards.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, and we'll see you this session. Bye.
Aloha.
Adjourn.
See them all next week.